City radio station, Salam Radio, 106.2 FM.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. You are listening to Let's Talk on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. I'm Akil, hosting tonight with Ishfaq. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
First of all, can I say it's really nice to have you back?
I know, it feels like ages.
Yeah, ages is an understatement. I feel like you've not been here in 2025, which is obviously not true. I clearly missed him, so it's nice to have you back. So let's begin with a powerful new report. A British Indian advocacy group has released a landmark report into the Leicester unrest of August-September 2022. It attributes the violence primarily to sectarian Hindutva ideology combined with institutional failures in law enforcement and community relations. Leicester has long struggled with ethnic polarisation, and in 2022, celebratory Indian fans clashed with local Muslim communities after a cricket match, inflamed further by misinformation and online hate. Campaigns accusing Hindus of RSS extremism. Ishfaq, do you remember this? Do you remember in 2022, we had this huge riot situation taking place in Leicester, and we felt some of that could potentially come to Peterborough.
I do remember it, and it was very hard hitting at the time. There was a lot of talk about it locally and a lot of concern as well, and a lot of local politicians. I was a councillor at the time as well, and there was a lot of outreach saying, look, we don't want this to escalate. We can't have this on British streets. And to be honest, we have to look at, and I'm sort of welcoming this report, because even at the time we were saying that this issue, we have to look at the reasons behind it as well, and what's happened. I know you've mentioned that there was underlying issues in Leicester. I don't think there were for a long time. I mean, British-born Muslims, British-born Hindus have always got on. And Indians or Pakistani heritage, Indian heritage have always got on. We've never had an issue. I can't remember of any, apart from recently.
But are you saying that as a person who lives in Peterborough, doesn't live in Leicester?
Even from friends in Leicester, I know friends in Leicester who, where those communities mingle, where the Muslims in Leicester predominantly do come from India.
Yeah, this is true. You're right. I mean, I've actually lived in Leicester for a couple of years as well, and I mean, this is like 20-something years ago, and like you said, there was no issues back then, but this started something. This started somewhere.
I'll tell you, personally, like I said, if you look at the source and the reasonings behind it, I think those homegrown, when I say homegrown, people that were born here or lived here, established businesses in Leicester for years, whether they're Hindu or Muslim, have never had an issue. They've always supported each other, been there for each other. I think the issue came about when there was a mass migration or immigration of people of that ideology from India in the last, say, 5-10 years, and you could say, under even, say, Sunak, there was a real increase in the number of people coming over, migrants coming over from India, whether it was carers coming over as carers or care visas with their families and stuff, but they were bringing over, and there's no way of vetting the kind of people that are coming over. You're just vetting them for what they're coming here to do. Many of those might have been students. There was also people that, like I said, coming over with work visas for the care industry, etc., or in the tech industry, but they brought over that ideology which has been pushed in India, especially in the last 5 to 10 years under the Modi regime, I call it. If you look at what they've done in Kashmir and the way they've pulled back on articles in their constitution and made things tougher for Muslims within India, where
including citizenship.
Well, that too. Yeah. But what they've done is, and people see this around the world, but they try to ignore it or brush it over. But we see it because I've been to rallies, I've seen stuff, I've talked to people about what's happening there, and it is a way where what they've done in, say, Kashmir is bring over people of that ideology to say, the Hindutva ideology, to say, push those populations into Kashmir to change the demographic when it comes to the election. So if they build up their numbers, in 10 years' time, they'll say, okay, they've got a right to plebiscite, to a vote now. And guess what? Then they'll vote to say, oh yeah, we want to be with India. That's all they're trying to do at the moment. But then that hard line ideology, which finds its roots in Nazism, is quite hard hitting if you think about it.
And just to add to that element there, in the report, it mentions that there is a significant ideology driven by the Hindutva, and that is usually seen as an Indian subcontinental issue. That had real violent resonance in Leicester. So what's happening in India came to the UK, and it spilled out on Leicester streets. And the question I have for you, Ishi, and for you at home or wherever you may be listening is, did the local authorities underestimate the threat? And for me, categorically yes. Because if you go back to 2022 and you see what actually happened, windows, houses being smashed up, cars being smashed up, people being chased down the streets, people being attacked, weapons on the street, this was, and then you could see the social media being lit up with different types of information, right? So the question I have for you, Ishfa, is you're a counsellor. Okay? Ex-counsellor, forgive me, ex-counsellor. You know how the apparatus of a council works, okay? So do you feel at that time that the local authorities underestimated the threat? And how do you think or believe British police and community leaders should respond to something like this again in the future, and to this report? The report is damning.
Well, firstly, yes, they did miss. The authorities did miss the signs, should I say? They dropped the ball.
Yeah.
But you can't hold them responsible solely, or hold them responsible for it for one reason. I'll tell you, for the actions, because as a local council, they would have assumed that this. It won't be that kind of escalation, because they've not had to deal with that kind of escalation within Leicester or Peterborough or anywhere else, right? But when there's been this mass, and this comes on to the questions of mass migration, the right kind of people coming in, what sort of vetting should there be, within this country of people coming in. We've talked about on the show before about people going to fight in Israel, which I'm sure we'll talk later on, and then coming back over here. IDF soldiers coming here who have maybe killed, innocent people, or drawn into that ideology, what is happening in Israel and Palestine, and bringing that back over here. And if that happens and they, push that mentality on our streets, we'll see the same problems again. But there's no tangible way for the authorities to manage or gauge that.
So what we're saying here is that I take that. So there is a point of failure, which is they didn't have enough information to equip themselves for the right type of action to take place. I think the other thing, glaringly obvious thing that happened as well, is that the community leaders at that time from both sides, they failed.
100%.
They failed. And what we saw then is a major escalation. And now you have communities, although living side by side, I think you'll agree with me now, there's a degree of suspicion now. Right? And now with this damning report that's come out, and it's highlighting the fact that it was driven by ideology. This wasn't just some isolated incident. It was an ideology which was the catalyst for what happened in that. And I still remember watching people on social media, filming in evenings, people literally, do you remember gangs just walking through the streets, and Muslims, having to lock up their houses and trying to stay away? But then there were flashpoints, and I recall people from other parts of the UK then drove to Leicester, right? So either to join either side, and for me, that is such a dangerous thing to happen, where you will have people from Birmingham, London, wherever it may be, all getting involved in this, when the ideology, the way that this was prepared was coordinated, misinformation was rife, the policing system failed, but I mean they played catch up afterwards. But the point is, at that time, as it was building, like you said, no one really saw the signs because, like, as you said, there was no real intentions.
What happens is community leaders from both sides have to take ownership. The one thing I will say, and I'm not defending anyone here, but I will say that I know certain members of the Muslim community and imams, and even within the local mosques within Peterborough, when it was made aware that, look, these issues are rife or happening, or tensions arising in Leicester, and they spoke about it and they said, look, we need to be peaceful, we need to show a resilience and a different side and restraint. And we told youngsters who normally like to go to Leicester for a meal out or drive to Leicester with friends for a meal, to not go to Leicester, to avoid Leicester, avoid going there, avoid the businesses, just stay away for a couple of weeks until things de-escalate and settle down. But the thing is, we talk about the council and the authorities dropping the ball. The onus is on community leaders, right? They're the ones that have to notify the council of something happening. But then when you think about the Hindu community, how can they turn around to the council and say, oh, guess what? We believe this tension is going to happen because of a cricket match. This issue might happen because you wouldn't see that because it's not happened before.
Correct.
Right? But then when people, again, this is imported ideologies. So what you have to look at, we're thinking about the Asian community here, but think about wider, the British community, the white community, when they see stuff like this happening on the doorsteps in our country, what are they going to think about it? Why should they have to suffer the consequences of imported ideologies? That's why they kick off about stuff, and I don't blame them for it.
Brilliant way to end the show. End the topic. Thank you for that, Ishfaq. Appreciate that. So we're going to turn now to UK politics and Labour's controversial plan on a Palestine recognition. Now, that is the latest proposal from Keir Starmer. On the 29th to 31st of July, the Prime Minister confirmed the UK will recognise a Palestinian state in September, unless Israel makes key moves: ceasefire in Gaza, halting annexation, humanitarian access, and progress towards a two-state solution. Starmer emphasised he is listening to hostages, notably Emily Damari, who spent 471 days captive, yet she labelled the plan a moral failure, accusing the government of rewarding terrorism before hostages are free. Meanwhile, 40 House of Lords peers argue that recognition may breach the Montevideo Convention criteria, lacking defined borders, effective governance, etc. And legal experts like Philip Sands KC have defended the policy as compliant and international law. I put it to you, Ishfaq, that this is just stalling.
It's more words. Let me put it this way to you. The recognition of Palestine is in United Nations law from years ago, right? Since then, it's always been promised, talked about, and that's all that's ever happened. Same with Kashmir. The Palestine issue more so. When there's been a vote in the United Nations, I can't remember what year it was, but I'm saying many years ago, right, to recognise Palestine as a state, it's not happened.
Yep.
The world powers have not adopted that, into law to say recognise it. Now the thing is, the recognition of Palestine should be unconditional. For Keir Starmer, one side of me says, well done, yes, we need to recognise it, thank you, about time. But at the same time, I'm like, hold on, what is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
So you're saying that if Israel kills, continues with the genocide, continues with the starvation, right, we will then recognise the state of Palestine. But if you cease with all of those atrocities, then you know what, we don't need to. Hold on a minute. I think he's got his maths wrong.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on this element, which I believe that there should be absolutely zero conditions for the recognition of the Palestinian state. Nothing. There should be no... There should be. We could talk about all the things they want to do after, right? This shouldn't be in power, or Hamas shouldn't be in power. They should be disbanded. I think the Arab League have said, look, to Hamas, you need to disband. Do it for the sake of your people. That's fine. But for me, the recognition of Palestine should be completely unconditional. There should be nothing on the table based on that. And when I first heard this announcement that Starmer come out with this, I thought to myself, you're giving you're giving everybody time. It's a bit like Trump giving Putin constantly more months to carry on his deadly work in Ukraine, right? And it's like, why is this not happening immediately? And there are countries, by the way, in the world who have recognized Palestine many, many years ago, and they are continuing. And what is also interesting as well is the wave now of countries right across the world who are calling it genocide, who are calling it atrocity, who can see what's happening on their TV screens, who want a Palestinian state. Just yesterday, Israelis in Israel, they were protesting against what was happening. And I feel like when you're watching some parts of the world, social media, the news and so on, we're seeing more of a movement to recognize Palestine as a state. The issue that I've got, and I know you feel the same, is what about Mohammed, Abra, Aisha, Samina, whoever they may be, the children? They still need to eat today. These people have barely any skin on their bones. Adults, then their children, literally dying in front of us, and we're saying, oh yeah, well, when you do that, then we'll do this. This is what I trying to understand and comprehend. So, as I appreciate he's in, there's many conversations and there's levels and layers to this, but there should be no conditions based on this. And the UK now stands alongside France and Canada, who plan similar recognition. And Business Minister Jonathan Reynolds called opposition from peers missing the point, arguing that state recognition is a political lever towards peace. I've always believed, and perhaps it's just me, but I have conversations with other people who said the same thing, there should really be a one state. They should all be living together, have the same laws, be governed, have access to everything personally. But look, if this gets this genocide, this atrocity to stop, and Palestine to be free, I will go.
Let's face the facts. The issue is, and there's a lot of hypocrisy we've seen over the last 2-3 years. Well, we've seen it for a long time, but especially in the last 2-3 years.
Yep.
Okay, when it comes to the Palestine issue, we've seen double standards. We've seen, who actually runs or owns certain politicians in the sense of the way that they talk, even though they're caught out. We've got people that are denying, with the amount of media, the amount of images we've got in this day and age. People are still denying that there's a genocide, that there's starvation. People are denying it.
Yes.
How can you deny when you look at videos and clips that you've seen from Palestine of rubble, of it being, just annihilated? When you hear politicians, Israeli politicians, talking about the Greater Israel, the plan for the Greater Israel, which is annexing other lands, other countries, and then to deny it, then you've got lawmakers in America who are denying the genocide, the starvation, blocking UN resolutions, point on point, again and again, and it's continuous. And you're thinking, hold on, and then when you look at who and why they do that, they're funded by AIPAC. It's heartbreaking, and people all over the world, no matter who or what they are you've got restaurant owners refusing business, you've got people getting involved with boycotting, you've got people out demonstrating. Everyone is doing what they can to make them, appease maybe their own inner beliefs or self-worth because of what the people in Palestine are suffering. So everyone's doing their bit. I mean, this last week, what I found really touching was people, when they were throwing bottles of rice from Egypt into the sea, hoping that it reaches Palestine. People from boats throwing bottles into the sea, hoping that it reaches Palestine. And then Palestinians posting videos where some of them have found these bottles of rice or grain, or flour. And at the same time, you've got Israeli forces blocking the flotilla, with baby food on it. So in one hand, you feel a little bit of comfort that there is, decent human beings out there. And on the other side, in the same way, it's a slap on the face when you see the cruel nature of other people.
Correct. I mean, I fundamentally believe that the starvation of Gaza is a war tactic.
Look, at the end of the day,
How can you go? Yeah, go ahead.
at the moment, I believe that they are trying to make the people in Gaza so desperate. Look, they've had bombing, they've had their houses, everything's annihilated. Now the next step is starvation. So moving them from north to south, south to the middle, then to the north, and then bombing them, then bombing people or killing people or shooting people while they're in these lines waiting for food and aid, and then only allowing minimal amounts in, is to the point of desperation where these people say, look, give up, leave, So what they're trying to do at the moment and why they're waiting until September is they're hoping by September these people are either dead, starved, killed, maimed, or just decide, can't take any more, get out of here.
Powerful stuff there, Ishfaq. No, I totally understand where you're coming from.
But just to interrupt you, but what they don't realise is, we always say God is the best of planners, but also they don't. I will say this hand on heart, not that I know many personally. They don't realise how resilient the Palestinian people are. Do what you want with them, but I guarantee you in September they will still be there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just keep your political hat on for a second. Do you feel this is just Labour balancing moral pressure?
Truthfully, I think that's all it is. I don't want to take away from it because recognising the state of Palestine, I hope it happens, is a big thing.
Huge.
Right?
Yeah.
It's something we've called for. So that side of it, I don't want to take away from.
Okay,
and kudos to them for that.
The Arab League want Hamas to disband for the sake of of Palestine, and I'm assuming that then comes with lots of incentives to try and rebuild Gaza and so on. How do of course. Can you see Hamas so many years now down the line, and with hostages that they're still having their captivity? Can you see that happening? Can you see Hamas putting their arms down and just saying, "Okay, cool"?
The thing that, especially again in the last year or so, everyone keeps talking about Hamas, right? And the hostages, and yes, hostages need freedom. But they say there's 70 hostages left. There was 1,000 or 1,200 at the start.
Yeah.
Okay. Many of those, apparently, the way Israel has bombed, have probably been killed by Israel. And if it was about the hostages, then the actions that Israel has taken has not made them safer and has not made Israel any safer. And the actions of Hamas have not served the people of Palestine
that's a fact.
In any way, shape or form. Yeah. The only people that have benefited from, or the only country that has benefited from the actions of Hamas, I would say is Israel, because all they've managed to do is in that time extend the illegal occupation, take over more land, increase the number of illegal settlements. So how have Hamas helped the Palestinians, and who do they serve? It's a question I lay there wondering many times. So would they give up? Will they just go away? When you look at the killing and the numbers, you talk about children dying and the people that are being killed in Palestine. How many of those have been Hamas fighters? How many videos have we seen of a Palestinian with a gun in their hand being killed? I've not seen any.
Yeah. No, take that on.
And to add to that, sorry, very quickly, the amount of time, was it 20 years ago that Hamas was elected? In that time, most of the people that would have voted them in have either been killed or died. They did have a majority, but I think it was only about 25% of the population that voted for them. At the moment, you would say that there's only probably about 4 or 5% of the population remaining who originally voted for Hamas. So 95% of the population never voted for Hamas.
Interesting. And I guess, as you mentioned about how much of the land has been flattened, it really does make you think how many of them is actually left now. So yeah, I'm with you. They've done no favors to the Palestinians whatsoever. It's tough, week in, week out when we do the show, either myself or with Dr. Shabina, we talk about Gaza, and we try to talk as much as we can about Gaza. But each week the situation just worsens, right? And you go 7 days from now, I'll sit back in this chair, we'll have a conversation about Gaza, and then the totals have just gone higher and higher. And you are right. We do fundamentally believe, and we know in our heart, come September, there's still going to be Palestinians in Palestine.
Well, look, our politicians, lawmakers always say all lives matter.
Absolutely.
Right, all lives matter. But then I always find myself asking the question, if I was able to sit in front of them, is you've allowed over 100,000 people to be killed for 1,000 hostages, say 1,200. So how are all lives equal? How is all life equal, and how do all lives matter?
Absolutely. It's food for thought, isn't it? It's food for thought, absolutely. There is, as you articulated just now, that all lives are actually not equal.
In this day and age, unfortunately, it seems that that's the way of the world.
We're heading towards a break. Thank you, Shfaq. We're heading towards a break now. Do stay tuned to Salam Radio 106.2 FM.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Whether you're eating in or ordering for collection or delivery, Big Mouth at 349 Lincoln Road in Peterborough is the place for all the family favourites you know and love. But now it's even better, as loaded fries, grilled and smashed burgers, peri-peri strips and wings have been added to Big Mouth's mouth-watering menu of pizzas, chicken and so much more. Call in today, order for delivery via Uber Eats or call 01733 201020. Big Mouth's open 11 till 2, 7 days a week.
Gladcare is your community support centre, delivering services you need. Access free English classes for reading, writing, speaking and listening, or a computer course with CV writing, qualified immigration advice and more, including food parcels or supermarket vouchers. Gladcare can help. Also for free yoga and healthy you sessions and monthly coffee mornings with local GPs on site. 316 Gladstone Street and online at gladcare.org.uk. Call 01733 566 343.
There's simply a variety of choice at Chicken Valley, 318 Lincoln Road. And we don't just mean whether you dine in or order for takeaway or delivery. With halal dishes including peri-peri chicken, wings, strips and wraps, Korean burgers, sides, milkshakes and so much more. You'll have to experience Chicken Valley again and again and again. Open 11 a.m. until late, every day of the week. Order delivery via Just Eat, Uber or Food Hub. Or for collection, call Chicken Valley on 01733 564 053.
Moving house? Feeling overwhelmed? Boxes everywhere? Ivat Self Storage can help. Our secure, clean and modern facility, Peterborough's preferred choice, gives you the extra space you need with 24/7 security and easy access. So instead of tripping over boxes, store them with us and breathe easy. Visit Ivat, spelt IVATT, selfstorage.co.uk today. Because moving is hard enough.
Craving a heavenly escape in the heart of Peterborough? Heavenly Desserts is the perfect place to relax with friends, unwind with family, or for casual meetings with colleagues. You can now indulge in our delicious brunch menu with mouth-watering savoury delights, served from 11 a.m. every day. Visit us today at Cowgate, Peterborough, the go-to spot for good times and great company. Where else but Heavenly's? Party packages available for birthdays and other celebrations. Also available to order through Just Eat, Deliveroo and Uber Eats.
बेहतरीन कीमतों में काबिले भरोसा टैक्सी। जी हां, अमार कैब से रोजमर्रा का सफर हुआ आसान। सिर्फ £3.99 से शुरू। हीथ्रो एयरपोर्ट के लिए £120, गेटविक £150, बर्मिंघम £92, लंदन स्टैनफोर्ड एंड लंदन लूटन के लिए £88। हम प्राइवेट स्कूल रन्स और एग्जीक्यूटिव बिजनेस क्लास ड्रॉप ऑफ्स भी देते हैं। बुकिंग बहुत आसान। हमारी वेबसाइट www.amarcabs.com पर जाएं, 01733555888 पर कॉल करें या हमारी ऐप डाउनलोड करें। iOS और एंड्रॉइड दोनों पर अवेलेबल है। चंद ही क्लिक्स में आपकी टैक्सी बुक हो जाएगी। आरामदेह और कम कीमत सफर की बेहतरीन चॉइस, Ammar Cabs.
Turkish Restaurants Peterborough. The name says it all. It's the restaurant in Peterborough that serves amazingly mouth-watering halal Turkish cuisine, including delicious kaneva and baklava desserts. At 1253 Borges Boulevard, Turkish Restaurant Peterborough's the place to dine with family and friends or order for collection to enjoy at home. Call 01733 307076 or view online at turkishrestaurantpeterborough.com.
This is Salam Radio, Peterborough's Muslim community radio. Broadcasting on 106.2 FM and online.
Welcome back to Let's Talk on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. I'm Akil, and now we turn to a major political development from Pakistan, where over 100 senior figures from Imran Khan's PTI have just been jailed. Now, according to Five Pillars, the Pakistani government has sentenced more than 100 senior members of Imran Khan's PTI party under sweeping charges connected to the 9th of May 2023 protests. These protests erupted after Khan's controversial arrest, leading to unrest at army bases, government buildings, and clashes nationwide. Many party leaders were arrested, denied bail, and faced military courts, a move widely criticised by human rights groups. Ishfaq, I remember 2023 when Imran Khan was arrested, and it looked quite unbelievable, if you want to be honest with you, when I was watching this, especially here in the UK, and then seeing so many people coming to the streets and protesting, and seeing members of his party, even people in the legal profession, all being rounded up, and I was thinking, okay, there is a major crisis in Pakistan right now, and since then, fast forward to where we are today, you and I are speaking to each other, it just seems like this is just continuing, doesn't it? But what's your initial thoughts now on more than 100 senior members of Imran Khan's party being charged for these protests?
Let me start off with one thing first. Pakistan, as a developing country, as a country that has nuclear weapons, one of very few. The one thing that I've always said about Pakistan, or concerned me in the recent, say, 10, 15 years, is that there's always a call to protest. How can a country function, not only function, but how can it move forward, right, when the opposition, whoever it may be, all they seem to do is every other month there's a call to protest, a call to block the main arteries or roads of the country, a call to protest in the capital against the government, whoever that may be. Noon did it when Imran Khan was in power, Imran Khan did it when Noon were in power, and there's a People Party do it, and then you're like, hold on a minute, is this all people are going to do there? It's called Naribaz. Yeah, I always say that. People who, shout the loudest, or we are the best shouters, or what you want to call it. But it's like a population of Naribaz. All we tend to do is protest, right? That's the first thing. And as for the this topic of these people being arrested and the protest of that night. Now the thing is, as a army, or as the authorities within a country, whichever country it may be, if there's a destabilizing force to the point that it could destabilize not only the government but the country as well, when you're attacking army bases or the police, wherever that may be, it's a call to a coup almost, okay? So an uprising. Now, if that doesn't destabilize a country, nothing else can. Okay,
so let me add to that then. So Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister, was removed in 2022 and has since faced a deluge of legal cases, including corruption and terrorism-related charges. The 9th of May protests were a pivotal moment, with thousands arrested, internet blackouts imposed, going with what you just said there, and accusations that the military was cracking down not just on rights but on political dissent. Among those jailed are former cabinet ministers, party officials and grassroots organisers. Many have been sentenced under Pakistan's Army Act and Official Secret Act, laws usually reserved for military personnel or espionage cases. So I put to you, Ishfaq, yes, they like to protest about everything. On this occasion, they've protested. And of course, the government has lost control, and the army stepped in. The first thing they do is they have an internet blackout, and then they go and round all these people up. But they've charged them under the Military Acts or the Official Secrets Act. Don't you think that's a bit too far? Should this not have been done in civilian courts?
Well, No, because apparently the attacks, there was brigadiers or generals' houses that were attacked or burnt, right? Now, whether this was state action, whether it was, these protesters doing that, if you are attacking the army, then you're attacking the state, right? So if that's happened, now I'm not gonna sit here and say to you whether what happened was the right way, wrong way. Some people are denying, many people have denied, say that it was an inside job to allow this to happen. Both sides, have accused each other of being in the pockets of foreign entities. Okay, both sides have done that. Yeah. If you speak to people who support Imran Khan, they will say that Noon supporters or Noon politicians are, sort of bequest to foreign powers, and Noon supporters will say the same of Imran Khan. Who's right in that? We don't know. The only thing you can say is at the moment, if things carry on like that, all you will see is, the country being weak. And if you look at what happened to Gaddafi, say, as an example, people, or what, the coup in Turkey that was attempted, okay, where people then came together, the public came together to stop that. Had this been allowed to escalate, it would have been along those lines, okay? And had that happened, Pakistan would be probably in a worse position than it is now. Now, there's many, look, I'm not saying I'm a supporter of Noon or Imran Khan in this. I'm just trying to say the facts of what I've seen from other nations and what we've learned. Yeah, there's households, and I can talk to you about my own household is divided on this, subject. My mum is an avid supporter of Imran Khan. My dad supports Noon League. When I went to Pakistan 4 years ago, before I left, and I'd spoken to Imran Khan, like I said to you, live online, thanks to certain politicians, got me into this chat, and I asked Imran Khan a question at the time, which is what can, people who are abroad, Pakistanis who are abroad, do to support you and your cause? And he said, spread the message, keep it going, and support PTI. But the country is divided on this, but then it's the same as people here, there's Labour groups, Conservative groups, but you don't go to those extremes. Yeah, you don't go to the extremes of attacking the army or attacking public offices. And that's what I was talking about. We seem to be good in those countries at demonstrating and not actually dealing with the facts. But I was coming on to the point that when I left here, I was like, maybe Imran Khan's right. Maybe, he seems like a nice guy. He is a nice guy. He's a decent guy. He seems to be doing the right thing. He talks the right talk about what needs to happen and what he's trying to do, I could see. But then I'll go to Pakistan, I'll go to Lahore, and you talk to people on the ground in Lahore, and I'm not talking about just wealthy people, I'm talking about general Joe public, and they are, people on the ground in Pakistan seem to be supporting Noon League or, the current administration because of what they've done or brought into the city or, the infrastructure and the improvements, which they say under them, because they're business people, have put the country in a better position or seem to move in the country in a better position. Now, whether there's corruption, whether, I'm not going to sit here and talk about that because both sides, again, complain about corruption or accuse each other of corruption. So, our, as British-born Muslims with Pakistani heritage, yes, we want to see that country prosper. Yes, we care about what happens there, but it's difficult. Have they made an example of these people? Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, look, human rights organisations, including Amnesty and Human Rights Watch, they've condemned the trials as politically motivated. Legal experts are warning that the use of military courts for civilians sets a dangerous precedent, and PTI itself argues this is a full-scale dismantling of the country's largest democratic party. But the government insists that there are legitimate prosecutions. They claim PTI orchestrated an anti-state conspiracy. So, I guess the question is this justice or is this just a purge? If Pakistan is trying to project political stability ahead of elections, is it crossing the line into authoritarianism?
I don't agree with the actions. I will say that. I don't agree with the extreme level of actions or military courts, because it's almost like a closed courthouse.
Yeah, that's right.
If it's in a public domain where you show the evidence against the accused, fair enough. When it's behind closed doors, it leaves a level of mistrust. And then it does make it a little bit more politically motivated, where you're getting rid of your opposition or weakening the opposition. So, do I agree with the method? No. Do I agree with some of the reasoning behind it? Possibly.
Okay, but look, we both know that Imran Khan still commands significant popular support, especially among young Pakistan's youth. Yet, his political future and of his party is, let's be honest, it's just looking increasingly bleak now, isn't it?
Well,
it's been systematically broken.
You can break it down as much as you like, but the problem that the administration in Pakistan will face at the moment is if they carry on in the way they're carrying on, they may make Imran Khan into the next Mandela.
What a statement. Okay, let's leave that there. So we're moving on now to a lightened, a lighter topic, but not the controversy. Should there be stricter rules for older drivers? Is it time for regular age-based retesting? This is, obviously I'm not looking at you like that, Ishrat, don't worry. Of course, this is a topic closer to home and it's affecting thousands of families across the UK. Should older drivers face stricter rules or even a maximum age limit? A BBC article this week explored growing calls for over 70s to face regular driving tests or assessments. The DVLA currently requires drivers over 70 to renew their licence every 3 years, but there is no mandatory retesting, only a self-declared medical check. Campaigners argue this isn't enough. They cite rising accident rates among older drivers, especially involving vision loss, slower reaction times and medication side effects. Now, there are more than 5 million drivers in the UK aged 70 or over. Recent high-profile accidents involving elderly motorists have reignited this debate, especially as cars become more powerful and roads become more busier. But others push back, arguing that many older drivers are safer, more experienced, and drive more cautiously than young people. And forcing regular tests could strip independence from those in rural or low-income communities. Look, I know this is a sensitive issue. No one wants to target older people unfairly, but at what point does road safety override personal freedom? Ishfaq.
I don't agree with it. I'll tell you that for a fact, not because I'm getting older.
I was just saying, is it because we're going north? Yeah.
No. For many of the reasons that you've already stated. Look, it's not about they have to resubmit for an application for their driving license every 3 years. The fact is that the opticians, the doctors, can ask or request that they be retested or have their license taken away if their eyesight's weak, if they're on certain medication, if they believe that they're mentally not capable of fulfilling driving, proper driving duties or whatever you want to say. So it's up to the medical professionals, I believe, to define or decide on whether someone is capable or not.
Is this on a case-by-case basis?
I think so. I believe so.
Do you feel there should be no upper limit? Should there be an age where you're like, okay, when you get to this age,
no, you
can't drive?
No,
okay.
Unless you can't physically steer, brake, see, then no. Because I personally, I've seen, and I've been driving since I was 17.
That's 500 years ago.
500 years. And I would say some of the safest drivers the safest drivers I have seen are, the older generation, the elderly. They drive at the speed limit. They are considerate to other drivers. The ones that we need to worry about are the young drivers.
I'm going to flip it back on you. I'm sorry, but I've seen elderly people driving in the wrong direction. Here in Peterborough, I've seen an elderly person on a dual carriageway coming down in the wrong lane.
Maybe one.
There's more than this, right? So you have people. So I haven't got a catalogue of examples, but I'm just saying some of the views that I definitely do have. And again, it's not a personal thing. I agree with you. There should be no upper limit because we're going towards this ourselves. So no. But I do feel that once you get to 70, you should have to do some type of mandatory training or a test once a year. You're going to say that's too much.
Right. Firstly, it is too much. I'll tell you why. There's so many implications from taking elderly people off the road. One of the key things is, their freedom to move around. They're already, in many cases, locked away from, other environment, society, etc. Being able to get to medical appointments, being able to get to social events.
I get that, but are they going to crash on the way there?
I don't look. Like I'm saying to you, I've seen better examples of elderly drivers. Very few I could say that I've seen driving the wrong way. There is stories of it. Yes, there is. But then there's stories of European drivers driving the wrong way. There's stories of young drivers driving the wrong way when they're intoxicated. So I've seen. I can give you more examples of those on a day-to-day basis. When I'm out there driving on the local streets, I will see people who have nearly driven into me because they're driving too fast, because they can't manage the car they're driving. I've seen people cut from the wrong lane across my lane to go right on a roundabout, and I see, regularly. I mean, I expect people, I have to now anticipate, will the person on the left cut in front of me, and I've probably once a week I have to stop while someone cuts in front of me on a roundabout to turn right when they're in the lane to go straight.
Yeah, it's what happened to me. Okay, so let me give you some stats. Okay, the highest crash rates per mile are actually among young drivers aged 17 to 24. So you are right about that. But accident severity tends to increase among the elderly, especially those over 80. According to the ROSPA, most elderly drivers self-regulate. They stop driving at night or in bad weather.
Well, there should be a choice. And yes, maybe check their eyes, eye test, mental capacity kind of test, fair enough. But if someone's been driving for the best part of 50 years, I think they know how to drive a car, park a car, put it into gear, brake, right, indicate.
Okay, so Ishi, should there be a maximum driving age? Where would you, if there, I said what you said, there shouldn't be, but where would you have would you have mandatory retest anyway, or not?
No, because I'm thinking about myself here. If I live to 100, I'd love to be able to drive till I'm 100.
Yeah, while you've got your faculties and you're okay, fine. So you believe there should be no mandatory retest. There should be medical tests. Do you believe that though?
Yeah.
How often would you have a medical test?
Every 5 years.
5 years. Maybe 5 years.
I'm not a medical professional. Maybe I would, Dr. Shabina can tell you that as people get older, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 5. But you don't want to inconvenience people at the same time. You don't want to add, more pressure to maybe their own ailments, or in that age, you don't want to give people more stress. I always say that for our elderly, we need to make life easier for them, not harder.
Okay, so there are examples. Okay, I appreciate that. There are examples, many of which, where someone has passed away, like an elderly person has passed away in the UK, not in an accident where they've been on their own. And so, but I actually know someone personally whose dad is 98 years old and still drives his car in Peterborough. Okay, and he's got everything about him, and it's quite impressive, to be honest with you. Perhaps I was a little harsh, once a year, but I feel like once you get to a certain age and the way that the law is changing with smart motorways and road signs and so on, there has to be, alongside that medical test every year, something they go through to make sure, we can do this. Because I just feel that we are seeing an increase now in accidents on the road connected to elderly people.
Let me tell you something from personal experience. I will tell you that the most honest, reasonable, and self-aware generation is the generation above 70, or our pensioners, etc. And they will themselves tell you, whereas others won't.
Yeah.
That generation would say to you, you know what, I find it difficult to drive now. You know what, my eyesight's not as good. They're an honest generation. So I believe that Anyone else, maybe my generation, not as much, right? But that generation, I have a lot of trust and empathy for them, and I trust them to make the right decisions for themselves. You know, I don't want everything to be a police state.
Yeah. Okay. I guess looking at it from a safety angle, do you feel like we may end up seeing some type of legislation? There's so much legislation trying to go to Parliament at the moment, but nevertheless, do you feel like we may see something? That if we continue to see more elderly-related accidents, can you foresee the current government potentially bringing something into? I mean, I think it would be quite devastating for someone who's quite old.
I hope not. I really hope not. You know, I don't think there's a need for it. I think
flipping this
people
then.
can
I know we're concentrating
self-regulate.
on the elderly, but what about this? Let's quickly go over the young people. Of course, they have the highest rate of accidents when they first pass. Do you think the age to pass get a driving license should be increased?
No.
Do you believe that? I think I read it somewhere that the first 6 months. I think it was the chairman of the AA. I think it was who said it. He was recommending that as a young person, when you get your license, for the first 6 months, you should be banned from having passengers.
No, I don't agree with that either. Look, at the end of the day, driving is something that everyone has a right to.
I get it, but from a
believe.
safety perspective, when
Safety,
you look at the data,
well,
they're crashing the most.
Okay, look, I'm going from my generation to now generation.
Manual gearboxes, eh?
They have the highest insurance to pay. Cars are more expensive than what they were when I was growing up. They're harder to get insured. They are monitored, easier to monitor
With
or
the black
track
boxes
with the
and
black
stuff.
boxes.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Absolutely.
giving these youngsters responsibility where they're saying, you know what, I want to be able to drive. The only way I can do it is by having a black box in my car, or I've got to pay a higher premium. And I've got to drive sensibly because that black box monitors, and if I go over a certain speed limit, my insurance is going to go up. So there's a consequence and a cost to all of that. So the ones that are driving badly or illegally are the ones that don't have those concerns. Okay, I can tell you, you know, just 2 months ago, coming up to 2 months ago, my 18-year-old had a severe accident, you know, and it was his fault, you know, but he was in a car, it was a high-performance car that I didn't want him to have, but he bought it with his own money, he insured it with his own money, so, you know, he was taking a level of responsibility, and I wouldn't have allowed him to buy it, he bought it without asking me, right? But he was trying to be mature enough and show a level of maturity. Oh, I can deal with this. And so I was like, now you deal with it. And that wasn't good for him. And, when you try and tell kids of this age, they know better than you. So to give you a perfect example, he had an accident in that car, which was his fault. The car was right off. When I saw the car, I was afraid. I thought, you know what, this is really bad. I don't know if he survived. And I don't wish any parent to go through those, moments that I went through. But he's learnt a very expensive lesson. Luckily, no one was hurt in the sense of everyone walked away from the accident. But it was an expensive lesson for him, for his friends, and anyone else, who knows him. So it's hard for young drivers as it is. At the moment, if they get caught or get more than 6 points, they lose their licence. My other son, older than him, to give you an example, I bought him a car, got it insured for him. And he, within the first space of, within the first 6 months, he managed to rack up 6 points, right? So I said, deal with the consequences. What happened? He lost his licence. It took him another 2 years to find the time and the money, probably, because I wasn't going to do it again, to take his tests, lessons again, etc. So there is, I've seen it firsthand within, from my own kids, consequences, how hard it is for young drivers, and I can't see what else you can do to make it harder for them. I think what's happening at the moment, the responsible drivers will always be responsible, and the idiot drivers will always be idiots.
Yes. I was listening to you just then, and I was thinking, okay, so he's part of those statistics of being a young person and having friends in the car and being influenced. I think, and that's kind of really what it is, that goes through my mind. Personally, as someone, driving from a very young age, it's one of the pleasures of life, isn't it? Just having that freedom. You're in your car and you just bought it. It doesn't matter what it was. I mean, I had an F-Red Mitsubishi Colt.
I passed on my 17th birthday.
Yeah.
So the first day I could legally drive,
Yeah.
I passed my test.
Hey, wow.
So yeah. So I've been
There's
driving
levels
from,
to this. This is what you're telling me.
I've been driving from day dot, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Correct. And I think as long as you have your faculties, you should be allowed to drive. I just think, personally, there should be some sort of test or something that accompanies a medical check. And the medical check shouldn't be self-cert, right? It should be based on, like a doctor that we have, our own resident doctor, who certifies that you're fit to drive. Actually, leading up to this show, I was listening to another station and they were talking about people with ADHD and so on and how they're struggling to drive. I'll pick that up with you in a future show. I can't believe we've run out of time, Ishfaq. I've really enjoyed your company tonight. We've really chewed the fat, as they say. I appreciate that. That brings us to the end of Let's Talk. Stay tuned to Salam Radio 106.2 FM. We'll be back soon. Bye.
Stay tuned to Salam.